Hey guys, tonight we take a stroll through insomnia cures from the 1800s. You better hold on to your nightcaps because this is going to be a wild ride. I'm your host, and you are listening to the No Sleep Podcast. Welcome back, my old friends. You may think that our modern world is filled with so much stimulation that it's hard to get a good night's sleep. And while I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly, just know that people in the 1800s had just as many issues getting quality shut-eye. Tonight, we're going to talk about how the Victorians tried to cure their insomnia, because it turns out they tried everything except for counting sheep. They tried everything. First up on our list of ways to put some Z's in your ZZG is to have a good scare. I am not kidding. In fact, let me read you this excerpt from The Doctor from 1873. People who suffer from nervous irritability and consequent insomnia will often find that a well-timed fright will break the golden lethargy and produce a good night's rest. Well said, Dr. Chambers. I mean, can you imagine anything more terrifying than being jolted awake by some nightmarish boogeyman, only to realize that it's all in your head? It's got to put some bang in your bacchus, right? I'm assuming that's a thing. I don't know. I'm not an insomniac. But moving on from the terror tactics, we have one of the most popular treatments for insomnia in the Victorian era, bromides. Now, bromides are still used today as sedatives, but back then they were literally considered the cure-all for insomnia. Bromides are salts of a compound called bromine, which is actually a reddish-brown liquid at room temperature. It's highly corrosive and was used in the past to bleach textiles. But despite its dangerous nature, this evil elixir was put into just about every over-the-counter medicine for treating anxiety and sleep disorders, and I use that term lightly, because back then they wouldn't even call them medicines. These concoctions contained bromide. They'd just call them tonics or something, so you never really knew what you were getting when you went to the apothecary. Sometimes these broths could contain opium as well, which is why there is a chance that someone could become addicted to them after taking them for a long period of time. And opium's addictive qualities were well known during the Victorian era, so naturally people became concerned when bromide addiction started running rampant. This led to the American Medical Association to start regulating the use of bromides. But it didn't go into full effect until 1906, and even then it took until 1929 for the FDA to ban the sale of over-the-counter bromides. And now on to something a little bit more active. Our next big way to treat insomnia was to exercise to exhaustion. If you couldn't sleep, then you just needed to work yourself harder, right? Have you ever heard of the phrase, "A tired mind needs a tired body"? Yeah, because that's exactly what they would tell people to help them fall asleep. This advice even made its way into print in 1874, when it was written. If the patient cannot sleep, he should get out of bed and walk until he is tired enough to sleep, and then he will sleep soundly. This same publication also said that patients should exercise every day between 4 and 6 p.m., but not too close to bedtime. Of course, because nothing screams "I'm ready for bed" like collapsing on your mattress from complete exhaustion. But we aren't done with exercise yet. There was another form of movement that was recommended to treat insomnia called Swedish movement. This was basically a series of isometric exercises that targeted different muscle groups. Not only did they recommend doing the movements throughout the day, but they also suggested performing them in bed if a person couldn't sleep. This regimen looked like this. First, contract the abdominal muscles and hold for 10 seconds. Then contract the thigh muscles and calves and hold for 10 seconds. Next, contract the arm muscles and hold for 10 seconds. Finally, contract the muscles of the chest and shoulders and hold for 10 seconds. Again, these movements were supposed to tire out the body and relax the mind, allowing the sleeper to drift off. It sounds easy. How could this possibly fail? So far, we've talked about having a good scare, consuming harmful levels of opium, exercising to utter exhaustion, and holding isometric poses. And none of those worked for you. Well, no need to despair because we still have half the episode left. Coming up next is one of the weirder treatments on our list, wearing a rubber band on your wrist. Okay, here's the story behind this curious piece of advice. Apparently, a man named J.M. Petoia was so troubled by his insomnia that he started experimenting with himself and discovered that if he wore a rubber band around his wrist, he could fall asleep easier. After trying this method, he wrote to the editor of the New York Times to share his discovery with the world. Naturally, the paper published the letter and soon received hundreds of responses from readers claiming that they had success using the rubber band method. Now, I don't want to discount anyone's results, but this was the same paper that printed out medical advice from doctors that believed letting your bowels move regularly could cure constipation. So take from that what you will. Back in the 1800s, mesmerism was a huge part of medical practice. Mesmerism, for those of you who aren't familiar, was a form of treatment developed by Austrian physician Franz Mesmer, who believed that the human body contains a magnetic fluid that causes illness when it becomes unbalanced. While his theories were later disproven, his technique of treating patients with a combination of suggestion and imagination remained. It wasn't until later that this was combined with hypnosis and became known as hypnotherapy. Regardless of what you call it, the practice was used to treat insomnia by putting the patient in a trance-like state and then suggesting that they would unfeel tired until the next morning. There's a good chance that hypnotic suggestion still exists today in modern forms, but whether or not it works is still up for debate. Coming up next, I'm going to read you a quote that will make you thankful that you're re-listening to this episode with headphones on. During the 1800s, some believed that placing a live mouse under someone's pillow would allow them to dream of being chased and therefore work out any repressed emotions. Who knows? Maybe this one works. You never know unless you try. But I sure as hell do we want to be anywhere near that pillow if that mouse decides to kick the bucket during the night. Gross. So we at the halfway point of our episode. I haven't given you the reality check yet that this episode is dangerously close to featuring. So here goes. You probably won't survive this. I say that tongue-in-cheek, of course, because I have a feeling that you'll live a long and happy life. But don't be sad if you die on the way to liking the video and subscribing. So if you're still listening, go ahead and post your location and local time in the comments section down below. Let's wait a few minutes and check back to see where in the world other insomniacs are listening to this. Now back to the show. We've talked about bromides, Swedish movements, hypnotic suggestion, mouse pillows. Now it's time to talk about something everyone loves, electric currents. As you may already know, passing an electric current through the human body can be fatal. But did you know that passing a small amount can actually be therapeutic? Electrotherapy was used to treat a variety of ailments in the 1800s, ranging from paralysis to depression to, you guessed it, insomnia. To perform this treatment on yourself, all you need is 2 pieces of metal and some wires, and then stick them in an electrical outlet. Just kidding. Please don't do that. Instead, you should pass a small current through your body by holding the 2 pieces of metal and then touching them to different parts of your body, including your eyelids. According to those who tried it, electrotherapy was quite painful. But if the alternative was chasing mice in your sleep, then sign me up. Next up, we have something that seems almost crazy, especially considering that coffee is what keeps me awake at night. Coffee enemas. What? Yep, you heard me right. Coffee enemas. Coffee enemas. Enemas were first described by Greek physician Asclepius around 250 BC, but it wasn't until the late 1800s that people were flushing their bowels with Joe. At the Paris International Health Exhibition of 1889, there was even a demonstration of coffee enemas being performed on dogs. The theory behind this treatment was that coffee would stimulate the colon, increase blood flow, and eliminate toxins. But I'm pretty sure that coffee grounds stuck in your intestines wouldn't be considered healthy. In fact, I'm positive it would kill you. Finally, we have reached the end of our stroll through Victorian insomnia cures. Remember when I told you that people back then tried everything except for counting sheep? Well, that's not entirely true because our last entry on the list is counting, specifically counting grains of rice. How does this work, you ask? Well, supposedly you throw a handful of rice on the floor and then count each individual grain. Doing this would tire you out faster than any other method on this list, I'm sure. But please don't try this at home. And with that ends another episode of the No Sleep Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope it helps you sleep. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and leave me a like if you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you next time.